Welcome to another episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics. This week we are back on the CRM and Power Platform trail again. And today I've got Ellie, Ben and Stu with me, all working in the CRM and Power Platform team. And with this week we are talking Power Apps and Canvas Apps. So we've done bits around kind of Canvas Apps and Power Apps before, but it's been a little while and we thought it was worth talking and sharing about what we've been doing recently, what we've achieved, what we've learned, and ultimately for you as an audience, kind of hopefully be thought-provoking of what you can take advantage of in the near future. So, first off, shall we talk Canvas Apps? Actually, let's just recap for the audience, or if you're a new listener, what's Power Apps? And what's a Canvas app? Who wants to cover that to start off with?
Yeah, I can cover Power Apps. So Power Apps, in a sense, is basically a low-code, no-code platform that Microsoft has provided us to build applications without the use of external code or external extensions and such. It's part of the Power Platform family, so it sits within inside of the Power Platform, so it can utilize all of the other apps that Microsoft have available. That's basically the full structure of it.
And then in terms of, obviously, we've got this concept called like a model-driven app, and we've got a Canvas app. So the best way I describe it is the model-driven. You put kind of your business rules, your business process into the model-driven app.
Yeah.
Your Canvas app, yes, it can have kind of front-end logic. In terms of how you, as a user, you interact with it, but it's designed as a front-end user experience.
That's correct.
Is the driver behind it?
Yeah. So model-driven apps more of it's more data-driven and logic-based, like you were saying, using business rules and business processes within inside of the app itself.
Yeah.
Whereas a Canvas app is more for you to build and design your own type of front end. It's still exposed to different data that you can pull into the app and utilize.
Yeah.
But it's very much you can design what you want within inside there. It's very user-friendly with dragging in different containers, dragging in different form elements, and design it the way you want to visually look. So with still having the ability to utilize all of the Power Platform, from Dataverse to Power Automate and such like that within inside of it.
I think the main difference, I think on a non-technical level, is that Power Apps as a general is then split into, like we said, Canvas apps and model-driven apps. I think if you talk about model-driven apps, we're more talking about what people would refer to as CRM. I think is where if you showed somebody a model-driven app, they'd say
that looks like CRM.
That's CRM is what they'd say.
But of course, we could create a visitor system back end in a model-driven app.
Of course, yeah.
But the front end could be a Canvas app. As an example, if we're talking not Dynamics, CRM and Business Central as separate to that for a moment.
Yeah, it's because it looks the same because it's all built within the same framework. It's all built within Power Apps. Yeah. So that's why it looks like CRM. It utilises the same form elements and such like that.
So it's
very user friendly and very. You kind of know what you're doing within the
model-driven app yourself. Yeah, I think with and obviously we're going to talk about Canvas apps, but with the model-driven app side of it, the structure is already there.
Yeah.
So it's a subset of tools to build a model-driven app. There are certain tools that you work with within the toolkit.
Yeah.
Whereas a Canvas app, it's a very different experience from a building perspective.
Yeah. It's a blank canvas.
It is a blank canvas,
Unless, obviously, we've talked that we've got starters for 10 that helps us with our customers of how we can get around with design and stuff like that and structure.
Yeah.
But you start with it, turn it on today as a customer, and you see a blank sheet of paper to an extent.
Yeah.
Just
there are
screen.
templates there. There are obviously templates that you can build from, much like, I guess. There are templates that Microsoft give you. So I suppose if you were trying to learn it, you could start with a template and have a look around to see what from an editing perspective, to see what the different elements were doing. But as long as that template was somewhere close to, I guess, what you wanted to achieve, then you could use it. But if it was miles off, then you might have to start from a blank.
Yeah, but the templates are useful to, like you say, to learn from. You utilize a template and then you see how it all works and how it's structured, and then from that you can go into your own blank canvas and start designing from there. The great thing about it is it's low code or no code, so you can go into it and have no coding experience whatsoever, have an idea of what you want to build, and start dragging and dropping elements around and start creating your own type of app. It takes a little bit to get used to, but with Microsoft's learning platform, you can jump on there for free and learn how to actually build your own Power App and such, which is great.
Would you say though, Stu, and I know how I feel about it, would you say it's almost a different skill set to building a model-driven app?
Yes, it is a different skill set. So anyone, I could say, could come in with a little bit of knowledge of like how, if you've worked in CRM and you know how well that works and how it's structured, you could come in and build your own model-driven app with probably next to no issues whatsoever. A little bit of learning straight in. Whereas a Canvas app, it can be as simplistic as you want, just a few buttons, click, does an action, or it could be really advanced, as in it goes into multiple different pages, has confirmations, has error codes dropping out. You can get as advanced as you want, as well as from that you can go even deeper and actually start coding it yourself, go into the back end and start actually writing your own lines of code and such, which is good from a low code to a high end code solution. That's what's great about it.
I suppose you can make it simple and keep it simple, but sometimes the most simple Canvas apps can actually under the hood be quite complex.
Yeah.
Simplicity is complex is kind of a terminology that I can kind of use from time to time.
Another key thing to mention here as well when we're talking about Canvas apps, they are used internal within organisations. So you're not going to build an app, put it on, the App Store and then release it to everyone and to release it to the public basically. It is an internal.
It's not like a catalogue app you can give out to your customers and say, hey, go download it from App Source, because it's dependent on an Entra AD kind of username, password, to get into the tool and that app. And you can do guest user access from external users, but that's probably the few and far between of your most trusted kind of partners in your business that you want to give access to. That if you want to give external access to something, that's where, again, we're not going to cover it today, but that's where something like Power Pages as a portal would come into play instead. Okay, so that's the background to kind of Power Apps, model driven, and then specifically Canvas apps. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the CRM front of what we've been doing in Canvas apps, and why, when you've got a nice, simple enough interface, menu, structure, why would we have a Canvas app, or what we would probably better known as a custom page inside of CRM, but it's aka a Canvas app. Why would we go and put a Canvas app inside of CRM to help a user using CRM?
So a custom page, obviously talking about Canvas apps here, there's two elements with where you can use Canvas apps with CRM. There's custom pages and there's actual Canvas apps as well, which you can embed onto forms. So I've typically used custom pages just because I like the look of them. I like how they sort of work within CRM. The major benefit of using a custom page is that you can connect to pretty much anything. Obviously, when you're in CRM, you're only connected to Dataverse data or your CRM data. But using a custom page means you can connect to anything that sort of Power Apps lets you connect to, which is, I can't remember exactly how many connectors there are, but there are hundreds. So an example would be Business Central. If you wanted to connect your CRM to Business Central, not through just a standard integration, you could use a custom page to do that. Okay,
so you go kind of creating like a little front end layer. So the user, it looks like you're still on CRM, but you created like a front end kind of screen that is ultimately CRM. It feels that you're in CRM, but you can also use that front end screen to connect to other sources. So as an example, I think we're going to say here that what you can do is that when you're creating a customer in BC from CRM, and you've got to set additional things like which customer template are you using, because the standard integration only allows you to choose one at the moment. Is that custom page can know that it needs to talk to BC and know that those are the options of the templates you can choose from. So it's giving you that extra level of functionality without building loads and loads into core of CRM. Is that?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I think
I do listen to what you as a team do from time to time.
I think obviously there's always a time and a place for either a custom page or a Canvas app. Like you said, a Canvas app is generally embedded on a form in within the model.
Inside of
so it might sit on the opportunity or on the quote or on the account or something like that. Whereas, like Ellie said, with a custom page, it's more kind of we tend to see those, or at least we do, is that we press a button in the ribbon and we get a pop out.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different. It almost
Different
layers on front
slightly.
of the yes. And the design, ironically, for the actual editing / design for a Canvas app versus a custom page is a little bit different as well. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also sort of subtle differences as well. And you see that across the Power Platform because with Canvas apps and custom pages, you're using Power FX, which is sort of like formulas, think like Excel formulas, and those formulas slightly differ. Depending on what sort of platform you're on, if you're on custom pages, Canvas apps,
The other Canvas app I know that we're talking about at the moment in time that another customer's having is that they're presenting some of their model-driven app data in a Canvas app that they can take out and about. So yes, model-driven apps can have its mobile aspect to it. So CRM can, and you get on your tablet or your phone, but they wanted a simpler interface for visits that they're doing out on site. So again, they've got, and also the ability to take pictures quite easily. So again, that's another use on top of core CRM and such like that again, it just provides a different user experience if people are out and about.
Simplifies
it. Simplifies it, I guess.
It's more if you're working on a mobile device, and again the difference here is that you wouldn't use a custom page on a mobile device. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Whereas you would use a Canvas app, and you download an app on the App Store, on the Play Store, on the Apple Store that is the Power Apps app. And essentially you can just download that, log in with your Office 365 credentials, your Enter ID or your Microsoft, and then basically as long as you've got access to the app, to that Canvas app, you can look at it. And we see it obviously in the loss of words, in the example that you just said there, man, about going to site and then being able to kind of open that Canvas app on your device, put that information in offline if you need to, and then when you come back online it will sync back up. We also see it for surveys, which I'm sure you've touched on in the past in previous.
The main thing for it is allowing you to customize an app specific to your business needs, so you can strip down and only have inside the app what you specifically need, just say an engineer on site to do. For an example, we had a customer that they go on site and they drop off like delivery, but also pick up delivery at the same time, and they needed a way to actually to do this on site with the customer, but also submit this information directly into BC to create a transfer order, sales order, and such that, but also to report back into the device to say this has happened, like an error code, as it were. So we built a framework for that and an app specifically for this customer, so that when they went on site, they would see what site they're in, see which customer it was. It would bring up a list of all of the delivery kits, and they would be able to say, right, we collected and delivered this, submit, and it would automatically submit that data into Business Central, create a sales order, transfer order, there and then. And that saved loads of time and effort for the engineer, because they would originally fill in forms, getting back and then inputting it directly into their web browser and into CRM in Business Central, whereas the app allows them to do it there and then on the site.
And it then does the back end for you.
Does all the back end.
And it'd be fair to say then, Stu, without that Canvas app that you built, there's no way to input that information into Business Central without
several screens,
several screens, much more complexity. Elements of the system, elements of Business Central, that person probably either A shouldn't see, and B shouldn't interact with.
As well as most of your engineers out on site aren't really back-end people, as it were. They're not people that are sitting there on the computer each day inputting forms and such. They're people out and about doing actual physical jobs. They don't really have time to do stuff like that, or even they may not have the know-how to specifically navigate through BC to get to this place to put this order in. Whereas we've designed an app, fill in a couple of things that are very straightforward to them, click submit, and that's their job done, basically.
Drop off, use, done, thank you.
Make
sure the customer's charged for those parts and that time accordingly. Obviously, full end field service for kind of, if you want the full end field service, there is the field service tool that we use, but this customer didn't need that. They needed just something that was very specific, that took about 3 or 4 different transactions into one screen that made it simple for consuming and issuing stock. Realistically, as taking it to site. And I think that's the key thing we've talked about onto Business Central, is that Canvas Apps isn't just I'm creating my own model-driven app. It's CRM, it's sales, customer service, whatever it is, or it's my visitor system and a front end that goes onto my screen in the reception area. It's also can connect to other applications as well, kind of all the connectors. And Business Central is a big thing for us. So you've talked about one example. And to be fair, more recently we're doing lots more examples. I think packing bench is another common requirement in terms of sitting there ready to pack it, saying, well, what am I packing on where, in what container? Where's it going? Do I need to pack it in a particular way? How's it been packed? If you want to take a picture of it, done, and then just goes and updates all the shipments inside of Business Central. Very simple screen. We already talked about production output in Business Central being kind of a simple screen with kind of clever MES that we've got. So again, that Canvas Apps with a framework, with the connections, with patching and stuff like that, we've got the flexibility that we can use the Power Platform for what it's good at, and we can use Business Central for what it's good at. And I think that's kind of shop floor side, but Business Central we've also used recently on order processing side, haven't we?
Yeah, so this week actually we've had a customer go live with a Canvas app. They've gone live with Business Central as well, sort of everything all together. And we've created an app which they can launch from a quote in BC. So they go to a quote header and then they click a button that says Open Configurator, because the app is called the Product Configurator app. And essentially this app allows their estimation team to sort of create estimations for products basically. For context, they sell fences. So obviously if you're selling a fence, you're not just going to get a fence off the shelf and just give it to a customer and, there you go. It takes a lot of estimating, sort of pulling through different things together and, So there's a few different elements to this app really. They can configure sort of standard products that they already have in BC, but obviously they've got thousands and thousands of products in BC because there's so many different, specs, variations for these products. So this screen essentially allows them to filter through the item attributes. So they've got different filter fields on the screen and it's filtering through all of the different item attributes and then allows them to get to, I suppose, an item in BC, which they can then add onto a quote. And there's a whole other, there's more logic in there as well. It allows them to do other things, as well. And then the other element is bespoke products, so they can completely configure a new bespoke product from within this app. So it doesn't exist at all? It doesn't exist. They just sort of know what this product needs to be, essentially, because they obviously get given a spec from the customer. And within the screen, they can sort of pick from steels, panels, fixings, they set to routing, and essentially they build in a production BOM, with obviously production BOM lines. So they're building this out on the screen and then they click a button and it sends it to BC, creates the item in BC with the BOM and the associated routing as well. And all of the costings as well come from BC, and they some of them need to manually input as well. And then they can add that onto a quote and then just goes on to BC. So obviously saves them a lot of time.
It sounds like we're communicating directly with BC for certain data and certain needs, but then certain things we're holding logic in Dataverse and inside of kind of Power Platform and building kind of rules of how they go through the steps on the app as well. Again, there are configurated CPQ products out there. These, from what I understand for the project, they were quite defined of what they needed. And it wasn't just an endless amount of rules and stuff like that. There was a number of rules, but we could do it. And it was we could go and do it in Business Central. We could go and do the development in Business Central and achieve the same outcome. But a different interface, I guess is the best way of describing it. Or we could do it in Power Apps, and the customers, from what I understand, was quite keen to do it in the Power Platform and stuff
exactly
like that.
And we are also using Business Central logic as well, specifically around costing. Obviously, with the fencing industry, they're purchasing steels and stuff like that, which the price of steels, varies and quickly changes. So we're using an API essentially to get the cost for each material, so steel for example, and this is basically going through the default vendor price list for that item. So they're not getting the cost directly from the item card. It's looking at the default vendor associated with that item, and then it's getting the active purchase price list and getting the cost from there. So it's sort of it keeps the cost up to date as well.
Yeah, so it's going through a couple of layers to make sure it's got as close as what is an up to date.
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, so is it fair to say then, over the past kind of 8, 9, 12 months, we're doing more business use cases with Canvas apps, custom pages, CRM world, traditional CRM world, Business Central world, getting more requests and art of the possible, can we? And okay, it I have to set the expectation. It's not a click of a finger, and you've got the app there. We talk about it being a rapid deployment platform, but again, with the complexity of business systems, it still takes time to put all the pieces together, especially when you integrate it to Business Central data that has a flow to it and its auditability and its transactions. So I think it still takes a little bit of time, but again, it's still cost effective, I think. But it feels like we're starting to get more use cases and active projects going on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with Power Apps and the way it's progressing, especially over the past couple of years, Microsoft have heavily invested inside of it. It's so flexible and so malleable. If you've got an idea, it can be done basically in Power Apps, in a Canvas app or a model-driven app, from my perspective, because it's so flexible and so open. You can build something very simplistic or something very advanced. But like you say, it all takes time. It's not as in, you can just jump in and you're done.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of thinking of how the back end's going to structure. So the front might look simplistic, but there's a lot of logic and a lot of things going on in the background, triggering and making sure things are correct.
Simplicity is complex.
Yes. But it is very malleable, I'd say. If you've got an idea, you can do it with inside of Power Apps.
Yeah, and I think if there's not a natural fit for Business Central, for example, inside of that, Power Platform, Power Apps is definitely a conversation to have.
Yeah.
Again, and we'll talk about the pros and cons either side of the fence, but we're definitely starting to see more use cases, and not just, it could do, it can do. We're starting to see actual kind of output from this of customers actively using them now, which I think that's where, as an industry, where it needs to get to, because people still talk about this technology, but starting to see what you can do with it and across our customer base is quite exciting.
I think we, because we're doing more and more of it now, as soon as we hear a customer talking about a specific kind of scenario or a specific function, I think probably Ellie and Stu are thinking, okay, we could probably do that in a model-driven app, but we'd need, a workflow, business rules, maybe JavaScript to achieve that. And then we're thinking, is that the right way to go? Because we can either go with like a Power Automate flow, which again, they can be quick, but they're not as instantaneous as what we might like. They're not front end.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you end up with the Power Automate flows is you trigger something to happen, and if something happens in the background or something doesn't happen in the background, and then the process isn't doing falls down. The customer expects it to do one thing, it's not doing what it's doing because of maybe the data's not quite right, and because it's back end, you can't see that. Yeah. We can't see that unless we then go into the flows and look at it. Whereas with the custom pages and the Canvas apps, we can expose that and it's much more real time.
Yeah. As well as write direct error code directly into it, so you get a readout there and then of what's happened,
what's gone wrong with it.
And I think that's if anybody ever asks, like, we'll put a bit of time in to build some kind of error coding / error information, it's worth its weight in gold.
Oh, definitely.
It is.
Yeah, definitely.
Because all of a sudden it allows customers to self-serve and hopefully correct their own problems if it's data related, or it helps from a support perspective just get that problem solved quicker as well. So if we talk about that, there is an absolute valid kind of justification, and I'd say there's a price to it, but it's kind of priceless at the same time.
Error coding's valuable no matter what. Like the project I was talking about before with regards to dropping off the deliveries, the customer wanted loads of different types of reporting, as in error outs, as in did the sales order created, was a transfer order created? If it didn't, why didn't it create? Was there too less stock? Different error codes feeding in and reporting directly to the engineer, the guy on site there and then.
Yeah, okay, so again, I think the proof there is it's possible to put that in, is the summary. Okay, so it feels as a kind of starting to wind up then. feels like we've managed to get our hands on it in detail, in business cases, get people using it in earnest now, in different scenarios, shop floor, out on the road, visits, sales, etc. So we're starting to see use cases around kind of the whole end-to-end of what a business actually does, opposed to, we may be good, which again, there's still plenty of people out there that still can't give you justification of how to use it properly. Yeah. And I think we're getting to that point, which as customers, hopefully you can then start to see that through some of the events that we do and outputs and case studies, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, I would say that now with Power Apps, it's not can we do this, it's how can we do this now. Yeah. You can definitely do it.
It's still, obviously the platform is still very much evolving.
It is, it's always evolving. It'll always constantly be evolving.
But it's probably get to a level you can say it's mature enough that you can get on with it as such.
Confidently trust within the technology.
Opposed to going, shall we? But now it's let's get on with it, kind of, absolutely. So it's not just being a pioneer, it's we've proved it's good to work with.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll do another one on Power Apps again when we talk about other stuff that we've done in the coming months. But that concludes another episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics, and specifically on the CRM Power Platform piece. Hopefully see you again soon.